Hello everyone, welcome back. I thought today I would go ahead and tear into the Band of Brothers starter set from Warlord Games. Now, I'll just say real quick before we pop in that I have been critical of this game before. The main thing that I didn't enjoy wasn't even a gameplay related. It was the idea of figure scale to terrain scale, where you have your 28mm size guys and they can only shoot 24 inches. Now, well, or 36, So I've never really given this game a fair shot. And I've never really tried 28mm gaming before. So usually I play 20 and 15mm scale, which is what I get. So I thought, to be fair and to really understand the game and the 28mm hobby, I would go ahead and try it. I think it's easy for someone to criticize something, but until you actually try it for yourself and form an opinion, I thought, let's go ahead and get this. So I did. I got this off of Amazon. It came in today, so I thought, let's do it. Oh, so I can rip the shrink here real quick. Had a nice big starter for me sticker. Now on the back, it shows that it comes with quite a bit of stuff. When you look at the back picture, what it has, you get a half track for the Germans, and because I don't know how quite they do force building, I was thinking it looks like a squad, so like a half track, a squad. I'm not sure how exactly they do the squad building composition, because then I look here and I'm thinking for the Americans it looks like 2 squads and then maybe a sniper and a machine gun unit, light machine gun unit. So we'll see. It's just that the reason why I'm not quite sure how it's set up is because I see there's 5 order dice for the Germans and 5 order dice for the Americans. So that would be like maybe 1 order dice for the half track. And then what I've heard, if you go to the very basic elements of bolt action, you're dealing with like fire teams, and the fire teams, you build those up. So that could be 1 die for the track, 1 fire team, 1 fire team. That's 3 dice. Then maybe your leader is separate, or it has a sniper, and then maybe a leader. So we'll just have to see, because I don't know. All right, I just want to make that clear. This is the welcome to Warlord bolt action gaming for me. And so yeah, it's the Band of Brothers starter set. This is their most recent starter set. I looked at a couple, but I guess those were probably first edition. There was like Battle for Berlin. I think they had a Pegasus Bridge. So some that were very thematic, but I thought, yeah, let's pop into the newest one, because this should be all second edition stuff. Okay, and then here's just a big list of components. Well, let's just open it. We'll do this the old-fashioned way. We have to open it to see what's in it. Oh, I'm trying not to bump the camera as I open this, so let's move the box lid. Now I get a mini rule book. That's another reason I wanted the starter, is because I wanted the rule book. I had the first edition rule book. I know it's weird. You have the first edition rule book, but you never played the game, because I wanted to learn, because my son, he had some friends that played it and he liked it. I just never gave it a fair shot. So now here's the second edition rules, which is fine, because I'm told that this is actually written better. So it's a small edition, pocket edition. I don't mind this style of book at all. I think this is fine. If I absolutely want the hardbound, I can get that later, but I like the smaller print editions. So yeah, that's what I was hearing, is this is actually, the rules have been updated, a little bit better read. So maybe when I read through, things will stick better. Okay, let's see, this was like a starter booklet, which probably doesn't show. Let me move this off to the side. Yeah, it's easier to see all of it. So this is a starter booklet that I saw in another unboxing. So this should give me a good idea on what we're getting into. Looks like this gives you a nice detailed breakdown of the units they'll be representing. Because I just see here there's like a cost and then the composition, the weapons. So this is great. As I go to build, this might give me an idea on how to assemble things. Here's German Panzer Grenadiers. Again, what's in the box. A nice picture that I will probably never see any of my stuff painted this well. So, you know, it's like, oh, just look at the box if you want to see what they should look like. And then I'll have to look and see if I got the farmhouse. I guess there was like a farmhouse you could get, or this ruined building. So we'll see what I actually end up with when we get there. And again, you get your half track, some templates, pen markers. Perfect. And then I'm assuming, maybe not an assembly guide, but I can see the force composition. So you're going to have, I guess, a sniper team, and then a couple fire teams. And then there's your American forces. They got their light machine gun. I thought it had 2 light machine guns. Maybe it's just the one. Looks like it comes with a spotter. Possibly your leader element then apparently maybe is made up of several people, not just one. So you'd have like a order dice for your leader team, order dice for light machine gun, order dice, order dice. Now it's had 5 order dice, so again, I'm just making an assumption. So one of these is going to have an additional unit that I could do something with. Ruined farmhouse versus maybe constructed farmhouse. There's your half track. See, again, that'd be 4 order dice, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, but it showed 5 on the box. So maybe there's an alternate way you can construct your troops. Laying out your pieces. Now, from what I've seen other people play, this would be a very dull battlefield. Just the flat map and then the ruins in the middle. And I think that's one reason why they do the figure scale, terrain scale. And what I mean by that, just to take a quick moment, it's just the way you measure things. So like with 15mm gaming, like 1 inch represents a certain amount of yards. So like if you had 12 inches, I was trying to remember, that's like 60 yards. I forget now. But what it ends up is that when you measure across a 6-foot table, that was like 240 yards. And so on small scale figures, you could be scaling kind of more realistic as far as weapon ranges. And then with 28mm, it's kind of skewed a little bit. And the idea, my understanding of it is, because your figures can shoot so far if you went with realistic scale, then your forces could just remain on the far edges of the table and never move and just shoot back and forth, and that would be a pretty boring representation of a battle, which is why you put lots of terrain. Or the other thing too is you could still have some terrain, but if you just truncate those ranges, now you do have to force and justify a little bit of movement on the table to get your forces to engage. So that's why, you know, bolt action, my understanding then is that the ranges are set up the way they are. It encourages maneuver, even though technically, yes, these weapons can shoot very, very far, realistic scale. So there's your, I guess in order to pull order dice, I need to get me a bolt action cup. Pin markers, dice for rolling combat results, and then your templates. Alright, so we'll read through this at another time, but it looks like this will give me a good start. The basic game idea is simple. I mean, I've seen people on YouTube play it. You know, you pull an order dice, that'll tell you who goes, and then you just put the side that you want, which is the order they're going to have, and then away you go. Combat, you get some pins, then you have to make a morale check to see if the unit wants to actually respond, which represents, you know, kind of their morale, their mental state and whatnot, because after they've been shot at, they're not robots. So if you pass a pin check, then boom, you're off and running. If you fail a pin check, then you lose, I'm not sure how many pins, but they start to rally themselves back into action. So good. Nice introduction. Excuse me. Then on the back, looks like we have a player aid chart, which is great because this play sheet seems to be slightly different. I mean, as far as just readability. It looks like it's probably the exact same information, but it's here on the inside of the box. Just going to move a couple things out of the way. And not knowing anything beyond much, I'll have to look at this to see what's there, but I just see close quarter. There's your close quarter combat, your weapon chart. Well, I mean, this isn't terrible. So it says here, like, okay, so for example, it says a heavy machine gun shoots 36 inches. And I mean, that's pretty short for figure scale. And that's the part personally where I kind of get hung up on. But I mean, I have the same problem with Warhammer. Warhammer, you know, it's the far-flung future, and yet their weapons shoot not very far. So I kind of have a hard time, but that's me, and it's a personal issue. And, you know, I'm willing to look past that, because if the game is fun, then that's the whole point. And to help me with that, I included a ruler. Thank you. I like that. Oh, 2 rulers. There you go. So now me and my son, but we got some tape measures. And that play sheet then was covering all the goodies. So now we have a Warlord Games catalog. I'm not sure how new this is. I mean, their stuff looks amazing. If I had figures painted like that and had tabletop scenery, and that's what I was playing with, I would probably be very, very happy with everything. You know, range, all that. So again, the problem is me. It's not a fault of the game, but I am willing to give this a shot and learn. Here's the order dice, and then there's the dice for rolling your combat results, which is great. I like this size of dice. I have over here another size I was using, real comparable in size. Something about the smaller dice roll better. Not that you roll better results, just it feels like they're just easier to roll. So there's the dice, and here's a base of one of the pin markers. Now this is something I had read, or actually I think I watched a video. I didn't realize, and you probably can't even tell here in the camera very well. I guess you can see it a little bit. There's numbers on this dial. So the pin marker, because I was wondering, at first I was thinking it's just one full pin marker, one of these pin markers per unit, but actually you can rotate the flame in such a way that you point it towards the number on the dial to tell you how many pins it has. And one of the videos I saw, they said they didn't like to use it because it's hard to read the numbers. So I'm actually just going to maybe grab some white paint and just very carefully somehow, I don't know if I can paint from the inside, but just kind of dry brush the numbers and make them easier to read. Now, I've never put together a Warlord sprue before, but I've built plenty of 15mm half track. Let's see if I've got one here. I have a non-painted one I was looking at. So in 15mm, yes, they're tiny. My wife, she's like, but they're so small. I know. And another reason why I want to try the 28mm gaming is also my son says those are so small. And he much prefers the much larger figures. So we have a sprue, the beginning of the half track, which will be nice, and it comes with seated figures. Now most of the time when I see people play, they don't put the seated figures in. I might not glue them. I might set it up to maybe I can do a little putty and just tack them in and then take them out. I don't know. It just feels weird always driving around with empty half tracks. But 2 sprues that make up the half track, and so actually that's fairly easy assembly. These little half tracks came with quite a few parts, so this doesn't seem too bad to stick together. And then here come all the infantry. Now the other reason why I really kind of thought, you know what, I'm going to get into this bolt action and try it, is because I got their other starter kit for Test of Honor. And I don't know who does the sprues that come in the starter box. You can see that a little better. I'm not zoomed in, but just so I can share some thoughts. What I was reading on the internet is that there's another company like Wargame Factory or something like that that makes some of these plastic sprues. I don't know if that's imprinted here on this. So I'm not sure if Warlord Games, if that other company is like a branch of Warlord Games that just makes the models, or if the Bolt Action series has models made specifically for it. But what really intrigued me about the Test for Honor miniatures was the fact that they came with so many options. A lot of different head choices, the arms and everything. You could kind of mix and match and pose and kind of customize your army a little bit. So for a new modeler, that might seem a little intimidating, but if you use like that starter guide and then just take some time to plan out what you want to do, the assembly really isn't that bad. You have to be careful because, you know, some of these items like rifles might be a little tough to cut from the sprue without bending and warping things. Oh, it looks like a submachine gun. It almost looked like a PPSH, Russian PPSH, but probably not. There's that. Just kind of look at some of the pieces here. We're not going to do an in-depth on what's on every single sprue, but just kind of my thoughts on assembly here. So what I'll have to do is through that starter guide is get a feel for what needs to be built. Because with Test of Honor, you have these unit cards and they tell you, you know, you can buy your forces because that's a small skirmish game. And they had on here at least one, see if I can find it, like this guy here. You can make a musician, kind of rally the troops. But the sprue really didn't have that musician on it, so maybe that's just possibilities. The other thing too is it has parts on there, I guess you can make some other things besides just the regular foot soldiers, because again, options. But the game says it has a certain amount of samurai, a certain amount of spear people. And so here, where's my train of thought going? Because I have so many options and because the game comes with all these different pieces that aren't necessarily built specifically for the starter box, and I don't know, maybe they are, because like with Test of Honor, those sprues were put together by, or my understanding was, by a different company, which is like I said, maybe a subsidiary of Warlord Games. And so those figures could actually let you build a lot of stuff not intended for the base game. So here I want to make sure that the pieces I pick go for what the game intends me to have, you know, two squads or 2 fire teams or whatever, because these extra bits and pieces might be great if you were building a custom army using the full rules. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make. For a new gamer, a new player to this series who's not familiar with the army building, just do a little bit of research, look through your starter guide, and as you start to put your pieces together, you know, make sure you're building what the game intended you to have to learn the basics. Having said that, that could be very well be that none of that matters for this kit. This all could very well be specifically made for the kit. It's just that I'm looking at, I'm pretty sure it's, well, no, these are probably Americans. Oh yeah, those are Americans. There's a lot of head options. So little things like that might not matter what heads you pick, but definitely the bodies and the equipment they're holding, you want it to match what was intended for the starter game so you could learn the rules. And there's another sprue. So now I'm just pulling some sprues out. So far I've had 2 sprues of Americans, looks like 2 sprues of Germans. And since I haven't assembled any of these yet, I can't really talk about the quality of the sculpt. But if they're like the Test of Honor, they're going to be a really good sculpt. Now the bodies look pretty thick and chunky. It's hard to describe. The Test of Honor figures looked a little little thinner. These look a little bit beefier of a model for the person. And what do we have? I believe this looks like a ruined... Yeah, it doesn't say. Yes, it does. This is the ruined farmhouse. So like I said, my understanding was you could have got one or a different model for the building, and I got 2 sprues for the ruined farmhouse. Great. And then we have the bases for you to mount your troops. It looks like I have several of those. That should be well enough. And we have a slightly larger base. That must be for any light machine gun team we put together. Here I have a sprue. This is your blast template. I'm guessing, again, for something that I've read, was in the first edition you didn't really have like a blast template to show or tell exactly who was affected by blasts. And I guess now we have a little template, which is fine. And then we have, what are these? I guess it must be status tokens. They have symbology on them, and I'm not sure what they mean. This looks like a eye crossed out, so maybe it means if you have no line of sight to somebody. Here's one, turret direction possibly. So again, not knowing the rules, I can't really speak to what those are for, but you know, status indicators are always good. Then we have some decals. Woohoo! Decals, it says specifically for the half track, and they look pretty good. Now I will say, as you start to go up in scale, I think I would like the much larger vehicles for sure, because you know, really paint them and whatnot. And then when you get the decals, everything is much bigger, easier to see. Alright, then we have here assembly instructions for the half track, which is great. And now one thing about the other half tracks I was building, they had variants that you could build, and the instructions didn't always cover how to build the variants. I don't think this has a variant build. I think it's very specifically this one model of half track. So if I'm lucky, well, no, I could be wrong. No, that is the one type of gun there. So, you know, if we're lucky, then these instructions are to a T exactly what you need to put it together with no guesswork. And as I was pulling things out, I did find we're going to have at least one casualty. I just dropped his arm. There was an arm floating around in the box. Poke the cat trying to pick that up. So we do have a casualty of war already. So we'll figure out where his arm and hand goes. We'll just stick him back in the box. Alright, and this is another part for the half track. Yeah, it's hard to see when you have so much stuff underneath there, but gun shield, the main weapon, looks like the seat backs, and then a soldier there that you can probably stick up there manning the primary weapon. And just because I set it out here somewhere, here's the base for the flame marker, or the pin marker specifically. Get my sprue cutter. I really want to see how this works, so forgive me as I take a moment of your time to cut this out. It's actually rather clever, which means I probably did something that was kind of silly. In anticipation of doing more bolt action playing, I ordered actually a whole set of these. So I think it's either like 10 or 12. You know, so definitely overkill, because I didn't know at the time that this is a counter, so you could have one. You don't have to put one of these explosions for each pin. you just rotate it. I'm going to assemble this real quick. I might not get this apart later, but alright, and then you would just have to decide. Oh, now you might not be able to see this on the camera very good because it's all kind of a single color, but at the base of the flame there's actually, yeah, I don't think I'll be able to get you to see this very well, but at the base of the flame there's actually a little, like a sundial part that comes out that points to the number. So yes, I can see how this would be difficult to see the numbers because it's all red, and when you set it down at a distance you can't really tell what it is. So I think I'm gonna ask my wife, who's very clever, and see if she can do something with the numbers. And I'll see if I can pull this apart. I'll have to pull this apart later, but I'll see if she can maybe do something with the numbers to make those stand out for me. So this is actually a very, very cool pin marker. I like this a lot. So I don't mind buying more, because if I do get more into this game, then great, I already got some pin markers. And then here's, alright, yeah, so this was in the book, but here it is on the back. It says options, but this will give you an idea of how you should build your squads. So this actually is a good set. If you're new to the hobby, I would say, dive in. This is, if you look around shop, you could probably find this Band of Brothers starter box at a decent price, because you get quite a few miniatures. You have to assemble it, of course, but don't let that intimidate you. I was a little intimidated at first with the Test of Honor because those samurai have so many parts, but once you put them together, they look really good. And I did play around with some posing, because spearmen, you can adjust them a little bit. And I say I adjusted the posing to give variety, as mostly because I wasn't paying attention to how they were supposed to go together. So I ended up with some interestingly posed spearmen. But they look really good on the table. And I know that the same thing will happen here. Just follow the guide, which is telling you what units you have, and just kind of take a moment to plan out your assembly, and I think you'll end up with some really nice looking figures. And so right now we're down to two sprues of figures left, which is all fitting back in the box very nicely. And then we have the half track. This will probably be the first one I build. I'll probably put this together first, the half track. And then we had, I think this was under here when I opened it up, but you got your baggie of order dice and regular six-sided dice for playing the game with. I know a lot of people don't like the order dice system. Actually, I've enjoyed this. I've always thought this was a nice mechanic. I like to tinker with rules, so if I was to make one tinker with the rules, it would be you keep drawing order dice until the next color comes up. And the reason why I would do that, which I probably won't, but my thought was it would then allow you to coordinate a couple of different teams on the table. So you can say, okay, this team is going to go this way, this team will go that way. So it's still kind of random, but it allows you, the commander, to have just a little bit more control. I don't know. It's just a thought that I had, because I've played a couple games where it's random activation, and you, instead of always activating just one unit at a time, you might have a chance where you could do 2 units during that section of combat. Okay, and then here's the cardboard play sheets. I think all the paper material I have is out, but here's the cardboard play sheet. Hope I didn't break anything pushing that down. You have your starter book, and it's just a shame this starter book is just a scunch longer than the box. So they had to bend that to get that in the box. So I'm going to take that out and leave it out. And then you have the amazing rulebook. Again, a small portable format. And my understanding, once again, is this has all of the rules of the bigger book. It's just obviously smaller. And people like that because then at the end, it also included the army lists. So if you wanted to expand your game, it already came with some army lists, and apparently I guess the first edition pocketbook wasn't that way. So everything you need to kind of really learn the game and take it to those next steps is here in the box. So that is an unboxing for what comes in here. As I put things together and play, I wouldn't mind sharing my thoughts on that. If anybody else has had questions about it from a new player perspective. The game has been around for a few years, and so a lot of times I'll see YouTube videos and it's very experienced people playing, and that's good. You know, if you want to learn how to play, you watch experienced players. But if you yourself are a new player and just curious about the experience of starting new, you know, please ask questions, and I'll share some other videos as I assemble things, and then, you know, maybe kind of discuss what I think of the rules now. So versus first edition, where I didn't play, but my opinions were kind of formed based on other games I've played. But now that I have it for myself, I can form, you know, a better opinion, have a better understanding, and give this a more fair review. So thank you so much for watching the unboxing, and I hope to see you later. Bye.